Welcome ladies and gents, Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter for boxing related tweets, or you can subscribe to the channel, click that notifications button and get a new notification whenever a new video is uploaded. Let's talk boxing. Josh Taylor becomes the new undisputed light welterweight champion of the world after a fantastic display against Jose Ramirez. Before we get started and get into the real nitty gritty of it, I've got to say this, right? I thought the judging and the commentary was disgraceful. Now, I've been very complimentary of Christina Poncher in the past, so, you know, there's nothing personal against her, and people know that I'm a big fan of Chris Algieri too. You know, long-time subscriber, something that I always bring up whenever I can because I'm so proud of it. Chris Algieri was a fighter who, when he fought Ruslan Provodnikov, Ruslan had just put a beating on Timothy Bradley, who'd been slurring his words after that for a couple of months by his own admission. And Bradley at the time was a top 5, 6, 7 pound for pound fighter in the world. Okay, he was flying high. He was very highly rated. And as in terms of an actual fight, like forget the round by round scorecard, a fight, he battered Timothy Bradley in that fight. So when this unknown pretty boy, well-educated university kid with no real experience at the top level, where the only footage available of him was this guy filming from ringside, you know, below the level of the canvas, so you're sort of looking up with the camera and he's just getting on the back foot and moving around. When that's the only footage available of him, people were assuming Ruslan Provodnikov was going to kill this guy. And I came out here when I used to do these betting tips and I used to say, oh, we did very, very well. I'm sure many of you will remember that. For a number of years, it was significant profit year on year until we stopped doing it. And I came out here and I said to you, listen, this guy can win this fight on points if he gets out of the early rounds. So bet on Algieri to win the fight on points at a massive 11-1, I believe it was. 9-1 or 11. I think it was 11-1. And hedge it with Ruslan to knock him out early just in case, first few rounds. And Ruslan dropped him in the first round, I think. And he got up, he survived, and then he outboxed Provodnikov from range. Now, when you tip someone who's unknown like that, you end up rooting for the guy for the rest of his career because you want him to... You want to feel vindicated, right? You don't want it to have just been a one-off. You want to, when you come out and you say, listen, this guy, barely any footage available of him. I'm telling you, he can get on the back foot and box. He's decent. You want him to go and have a good career. So I've got nothing against Christina Poncher, who, like I said, I've been very complimentary of. I think she's a very good commentator. And Chris Algieri. But my word, man, you might as well have given Chris Algieri some nipple tassels, some bonbons and a cheerleading outfit. It was ridiculous. I mean, round 11. We're in round 11. After Josh Taylor had a couple of knockdowns as well. And he's saying that the fight's still on the table. Now, I've since seen Hatman's video. And Hatman's mentioned that Teddy Atlas spoke about the fact that pre-fight, he wouldn't have been surprised if there was a decision that went, a controversial decision, that went to Ramirez because it would have suited Top Rank more for him to win the fight. Now, I've not seen the case made by Teddy Atlas. I'm simply relaying what I've seen in Hatman's video. I am going to go and look for that interview with Teddy Atlas. But listen, I don't want to hear American journalists again talk about, which we hear about all the time, British judging and British coverage of fights, because clearly this happens everywhere. But I maintain that the US is one of the worst places for hometown decisions. I mean, think of this, guys. Josh Taylor won the fight by 2 points. In other words, without those 2 knockdowns, they would have scored the fight 6 apiece. But in one of those knockdowns, Ramirez was genuinely winning the round prior to that. So that round would have been a swing. It would have gone to Ramirez. So you would have ended up seeing Ramirez win the fight 7-5 on all the judges' scorecards. What a joke. Sorry. But, you know, Algieri was talking like Josh Taylor had been outworked and he's struggling with the tempo in the first 4 rounds. I scored it exactly the same as Hatman. First 2 rounds, Josh Taylor. The third, it was a very good round for Ramirez, and Taylor found his feet again in the fourth. I had him 3-1 up after 4 rounds. In fact, I had Josh Taylor winning the fight 116-110. In other words, 8 rounds to 4. It would have been 116-112 had it not been for the knockdowns. How they found what they found, which would have been a 7-5 to Ramirez had that knockdown not occurred, if they would, you know, given him the round, which I assume they would have given him the round because he actually was winning it, then it would have been a travesty out there, to be honest with you. And the fact that Josh Taylor couldn't get his undisputed fight televised anywhere here in the United Kingdom, this guy needs to find a new promoter, man, because his talent by far exceeds the promotion that he's getting and the treatment he's getting from the media. So big up to Josh Taylor for a fantastic performance. Let's talk a little bit about this. Now, if you haven't seen the preview video, I implore you to go and watch it, because having seen the fight and then looking at the technical breakdown stuff that I talk about, you would have picked up on certain things. You'll say, oh yeah, look, Chris spoke about that and that did happen here, it did happen there, and so on and so forth. So I implore you to rewatch it or to watch it for the first time if you've yet to watch it. But we'll go into a lot less detail, but cover a couple of the points that were made. I explained in the preview that the entry point of Ramirez was very, very important. I explained that he'd want to step in with that long jab from afar. That his lead foot extends further. It's a lead jab where he's pushing you and he's trying to get you back onto the ropes. And if he does that, he'll have success. And you saw that on the few occasions he did cause Taylor problems early in the fight. Not enough to win rounds apart from the third, but when he was causing him problems, it was when Taylor was getting backed up onto the ropes. Taylor needed that exit point. And we spoke about how important it was for Taylor to be able to step back and throw a counter as he's moving backwards, getting his lead foot on the outside and targeting the body with that backhand. And you saw that throughout the fight. He was able to do that. And so Ramirez's ability to close the range on Josh was very, very difficult. And like I said in the preview, it's one of those scenarios where he could be working very hard to get close. And then when he gets close, he realizes this isn't, easy. Even at mid-range, Josh Taylor's quality, and that if Josh Taylor gets on the inside, you're going to see some real quality. And you saw that from Josh. He was absolutely fantastic. Ripping shots to the body on the inside. One thing he's brilliant at, and you've got to credit, I believe, Ben Davison for this, because it's something that Billy Joe Saunders is good at too. So, and you saw that against Canelo. On the break, so what he does is they'll tie up, and as they break, they're always in a position to throw a vicious short power shot. With Billy Joe Saunders, he did it where he got his elbow up. I'd mentioned that in the preview to the fight as well. And I know it's not officially his trainer, Tibbs is. I'm sure Tibbs would have had a lot to do with teaching him these things too. I can't know for sure that Ben Davison worked on it, but Tibbs himself spoke about Davison grappling with Billy Joe. And so I must assume that he has something to do with this, because as they step out, he's always in a position to throw that short left hook with the elbow up, and you saw Taylor do that consistently with both sides, both hooks, and catching Ramirez as he's exiting that hold. And the second knockdown was the uppercut, which came exactly from that sort of thing. They were together, they were in close, the referee slaps the glove to say let go, and he steps back and he shoots the uppercut and drops him. And another thing, we're talking of bias here, what was Kenny Bayless, the referee, doing, man? I mean, Ramirez, listen, I like Ramirez. I like him as a character. I like the way he conducts himself. I think he's a very, very good fighter to watch. Relentless, really enjoyable fighter to watch. I really like him. But come on, man. There were times where on the two occasions where he got dropped, Bayless, for a start, the count seemed a little bit slow to me. But whatever, let's say that's just me overanalyzing. He then walks over, finishes the count, pauses, then asks him to walk over to him, turns around, pushes Taylor back, comes back to him, checks his gloves, pushes Taylor back and says, come on, let's go. How long do you want to give the guy? I mean, I don't know what... But anyway, we'll leave that aside. The point is, as he was breaking out, you could see he was very, very good on the inside. And when they were working on the inside, when they were allowed to work on the inside, because often, again, they weren't. But those uppercuts to the midriff, the way he finds space... He's a very, very good fighter, man, Josh Taylor. And one thing Timothy Bradley said before the fight, and it's something that I agreed with on Twitter, actually, is that Josh Taylor doesn't really use his jab from range. And as Hatman pointed out, and this is very true, he'll often use the jab as a setup or to draw shots so he can then counter. But I would also like him to develop the jab more, where he can literally, on a couple of rounds where he took a break, I think it might have been round 9, round 9, I thought he tried to take the round off, and I gave that round to Ramirez. I would want him to develop somewhat more of a jab, where he can pop a jab at range and win those rounds where he's still taking time off. Because as he moves up weight category, and I'm assuming he's going to fight Jack Catterall next, there's no reason for him to rush and move up. You can make a few defenses here, no problem. But if he does then go up, he'll be in there against guys who are also very good on the inside. Errol Spence is fantastic on the inside, and these guys are bigger and stronger. So it could be a situation where he's not as dominant on the inside, and if he's not, then he's going to want to be in a situation where he's able to just get on the back foot and outbox guys on the back foot without having to necessarily collapse the pocket and just doing it off of the jab. Now with the knockdown, I also explained in the preview that he's got this brilliant ability to take a step back when you attack him and still measure you up with range as he's moving backwards to throw a punch. Now, the way I was talking about it in the preview was more him taking a step back by shifting weight from the lead foot to the back foot and then throwing a wide shot or a shot down the pipe. That's more of a Terence Crawford type thing. And I explained how they do it differently from each other, but there's a similarity there. This one was more of a pull counter, the knockdown. But you could see he drops back from the lead right hand and then comes back with that lovely left hook, beautiful tight left hook, which dropped Ramirez. And so the point is that Josh Taylor is capable of getting on his bike and moving around the ring. He's capable of coming to you and collapsing the pocket and busting you up on the inside. He's got a good chin. He's capable at fighting mid-range. He's capable of fighting, like I said, off the back foot or in a tight space where he hasn't really got far to go, but he can take a little step back and counter you. This boy can do everything, man. And yeah, he's very, very talented. The only area, like I said, I'd like to see him improve a little bit on his defense. I do think he gets caught with shots that he shouldn't necessarily get caught with, particularly when his legs aren't there. So if he has been pinned back on the ropes or something like that, I'd like to see him working on deflecting shots a little bit more. I'd like to see him develop the jab a little bit more to the point whereby he's using it not just as a weapon to set up other bigger shots, but to be able to dictate around against high-level fighters just with the jab. But everything else, I mean, he's just a very, very talented guy. Ramirez is also great. What a warrior. You can see how he's relentless. He put his hands together well. You could see how he was struggling, though, to close that range. Like I said, it really did depend on if Josh could read that entry point and pivot off and constantly change the angles. And you saw Josh doing that, consistently changing the angles on him, getting him to reset, and then collapsing the pocket. And it showed also with Josh. Ramirez was physically strong on the inside, so he wasn't necessarily relying on power alone. He was finding gaps for shots to the body. So you saw that he was able to adapt there. But additionally to that, we also saw with Josh this variation of movement. So sometimes he would come back in a straight line, other times he'd come off at an angle, other times he'd come in, other times he'd dip down to his own side underneath the hooks and come in close. He was doing a variety of things. In the preview to Billy Joe Saunders and Canelo, and in the post-fight analysis where I was talking about the difference in tactics between Tibbs and Tibbs and Davison, I explained how one of the things I wanted to see from Billy Joe Saunders, and I said this before the fight too, is to make his attacks more unpredictable, but to land a shot or two and then fall in and tie up Canelo Alvarez. That way, as I explained, if you land one or two shots and you fall in and Canelo doesn't land anything in return because you've tied him up, if that happens on 3 exchanges, you've landed anywhere between 3 and 6 shots and he hasn't landed any. So you start to take away his ability to fight. Well, we saw Josh Taylor do that last night. And like I said, he's also with Ben Davison and he's got a terrific team around him. Lee Wiley's a great analyst too. So listen, he's a very, very good fighter with a terrific team around him. And I'm really excited for the future of Josh Taylor. So yeah, let me know where you think both guys go from here. Both of them. You know, I expect Ramirez to come back strong. If you're Taylor, do you think Taylor should go up immediately? I personally think there's no problem with him trying to establish himself as a household name first. You know, earn the money that your talent has enabled you to be in a position where you should be earning that sort of money. Okay. In other words, this guy needs to start to be seen as a star in the United Kingdom rather than just, you know, a top level fighter that can't get a fight on any of the major TV channels here, and it had to be on an online pay-per-view channel. I mean, it's ludicrous for a guy of this talent. So yeah, let me know what you think, guys. Personally, I'd like to see him fight Jack Catterall next, who is the WBO, I think, #1 contender. He's the mandatory, so that would be a great fight I'd like to see. Where do you think Ramirez should go from here? What areas do you think he needs to work on? Thanks for watching, everyone. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.